Hello. Are you a photographer who is wondering about how to price their services and how that might be tied to self worth? My name is Barb Davids, and I'm with Compass Digital Strategies, and I help photographers get more website traffic and more leads. And today I am with Heather Wanninger of Sweet Lemonade Photography, who's going to take that a step further and show us how to get more bookings. So I'm pretty excited about today and how we're going to price our packages and how that's all tied to who we are. So thanks for joining me, Heather.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to be here.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start with a little bit of a background of Sweet Lemonade Photography and maybe a little bit about what your story is and then like what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. My business name, as you mentioned, is Sweet Lemonade Photography, and I created that name because life gave me lemons. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had been for many years. Thought that was the only title I would ever have, and life said otherwise. So I ended up in a 10-year court divorce process,
Oh,
long and drawn out. I spent most of my adult life just feeling unworthy, unloved, not good enough, not smart enough, not fill in the blank enough. And that's how I felt. And so when all that happened and the divorce process started, I'm like, well, now what do I do? And I had it someone, they're like, you need to do photography. I'm like, I have no clue what I'm doing. Always loved it. But that is essentially how it started. I was really deep in depression for about the next 18 months as that process started. And photography was kind of, and I say this, it saved me because I had to do something outside of myself. It forced me out to go do something. And what I found is I absolutely loved it. And so, because life gave me lemons, I turned into lemonade. I actually turned into Sweet Lemonade Photography.
yeah. Very cool.
So yeah, so that's my I've been in business for about 12 years and have really enjoyed the process. I started like a lot of photographers doing all inclusive shoot and burn model and not charging near enough. And throughout those years, as I've discovered more about myself and done the internal work and knowing my worth, then that's also, created an opportunity for me to see that, I could create a business that was really profitable and not just, making some peanuts. So yeah, so I'm
Right.
excited to be here and talk to you a little bit more about it.
Yay, that's so great. I am not an active photographer anymore, but have been doing some self work. So I feel like this is a very relevant timing piece of information. And I think a lot of photographers go through this, which I'm sure you can attest to with the people that you work with. And just knowing when I was doing that, I had so many questions and didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know that this was a thing, like that my insides would be something that would affect the pricing. So it's a very interesting
Oh,
topic.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Our insides affect so much. Our subconscious is so much more powerful.
Mhm.
I think I had heard it was like 80%, it might have even been higher than that, of our actions, our habits and things come from our subconscious thinking, from our beliefs.
Mm.
And so if we think we're going to actively outwork our thoughts, we're going to be working really hard for till the day we die. And so
Yeah.
it really is important to really get down to understanding about you and where those things come from. And, there was a lot of things through my marriage that just made me feel unworthy and not smart enough and incapable. And
Yeah.
it started even sooner, right? So it really was like digging down to what was the trigger. And a lot of it goes back to childhood.
Mm.
And I mean, in general, not even
Mhm.
just me. And I haven't even figured out exactly where it starts, or where it
Yeah.
started for me, but I'm starting to see little snippets. And it's, a well-intentioned comment from someone.
Mhm.
One of my coaches had said that, she was able to trace it back to her desire of being independent. And as she says, independent almost to a fault. I can
Mhm.
do everything myself. Her mom, years when she was just learning to walk, yay, you did it all by yourself, right? That's a great thing.
Yeah.
But what was intended as a positive in her mind was, okay, I don't ask for help. I can do everything
Mm.
myself. So it's really interesting that, regardless of how we show up, we can show up as, as positively as we can. Someone else
Mhm.
can be interpreting it different based on, just their own beliefs and things. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, really doing that internal work and understanding where it comes from and what you're relying on. And I found that in instances that I was relying on, needing to be overly helpful to
Mm.
feel loved, right?
Mhm.
So then translate it to, let's go to my business. I'm going to be overly giving. I'm going to
Mhm.
be overly sharing. This doesn't work for me in my business, but I'm going to do it anyway to make someone else happy. I don't
Right.
want to work on the weekends, but that's what they asked for. I'll do it anyway. And
Mhm.
so I was realizing I was doing what everybody else needed, what I thought was going to make them happy. And I put myself on the lowest totem pole, which
Mm.
was the norm for a lot of my adult life. And so switching into business, it's like, oh, is there even another option? Right? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there actually is. But for the longest time, I just felt like, well, I didn't feel worthy enough for people to pay me.
Mm.
So if someone was going to think that I was worth paying $200 for these pictures when I didn't believe I was, well, if
Right.
they want Saturday night at 7 o'clock, even though I had take plans to take my kids somewhere, it was very easy to be like, well, I'll just do that. I'd change my plans. I can take my
Mhm.
kids Friday instead. Right. And so it's like, oh my goodness, like realizing that and then setting healthy boundaries with all of that. I then learned they might have suggested Saturday at 7 o'clock at night. But when I said, oh, great, I would love to take your photos. Does 3 o'clock on Tuesday or 4:30 on Thursday work better for you? What do you
Mm.
know? One of them worked. I was in my own head. I was in my own head about so much. And so, when it talk about just knowing your worth, it starts with just really doing some of that inner work of,
Mhm.
what are your thoughts? What are your beliefs? How can we disrupt those patterns and create something new? And one of the things, and so many photographers that I work with, they don't know their numbers. And if
Mm.
they know their business numbers, it automatically increases their own self-worth in sharing those numbers because so many people, well, it just starts as a hobby. Like, oh, I'll just take some
Yeah.
pictures. Okay, great. Oh my goodness, people want to pay me. I remember I had to get 3 people removed before really felt like, oh, people actually do like what I do. Because when friends hired me, I felt like, well, yeah, but they're doing it just because they're my friend, right?
Mm.
And it's not too much money, so they're just doing it to be nice. Then the friends of friends, I still thought that. I mean, at that point, I'm like, well, they just feel sorry for me.
Yeah.
My thought was they knew my situation in life, got dealt an unfair hand, unexpected hand, whatever you want to say. So they're just hiring me to feel sorry for me because they feel sorry for me. It took before then the friends of the friends then came and I'm like, oh, am I actually? So people do like what I do. Right. And so it was a long process of understanding that people weren't feeling sorry for me. They weren't throwing money at me just because they felt bad for me. They actually liked what I was doing. But knowing your worth is so important. And because so many of us start as creatives where we just do it for fun, we don't really dig into the numbers. And
Mhm.
so it is really hard to be confident to say what we're charging and to know that we're worthy of that and that those numbers make sense when we don't even know. When we're just throwing numbers up and be like, well, let's just see if this works. Let's see if someone will pay me $300. Well,
Mhm.
$1,000, who would ever pay me $1,000 to take pictures? I'm only taking pictures for an hour. That's crazy. Right. Well, is it? Because let's break down all the time you're spending. On average, 6 to 8 hours is very common, even on the low end of the number of hours you're investing in a client. Now, you tack in marketing, all those other things, updating our Google listings, right? We add all
Yeah.
these other things in that we're doing for business. We're well over 10 hours. Now we're under $100 an hour for one session. Oh, wait, but now we got the tax guy, right? Oh, now a third of that goes out, or on average. Now you've got expenses. Oh, okay, so now we're really not making a lot. When we
Mhm.
can go into those numbers and really understand it, it helps us with our confidence too and being like, "Oh, yes, I'm standing by these numbers and this is why."
Mhm.
That's one thing, and one of the things that I really did, and the other things that we'll talk about is how I went from $400 to $4,000 a session was knowing my numbers was a big piece of it. And with that, it helped me get more confident in what I was offering. And then as people were actually paying me for it, I'm like, oh, what?
Mhm.
I am worthy now. And I say that and I kind of caution, like, don't wait for the external. of validation from someone else to determine your worth.
Mhm.
Yet it was also encouraging to see, like, oh, okay, there is a market for this. And I think so many times we think, well, most of the photographers around me are only charging a couple $100. How can I charge $2,000? Who in their right mind, I've heard that, would pay for
Mhm.
that? There's actually more people than you think that would, because
Mhm.
they value you, they value your service, they value the hand holding and great experience you can provide. They will pay that, and they will happily pay it. You get happy money. You get people that are coming in like so excited, like this
Right.
was so worth it.
Mhm.
Versus when you're only charged a couple $100, people are like, well, that's really expensive. What, are you sure? Like, do you have a sale? Right? I'm like,
Mhm.
we're giving it away already and people are still looking for it. So in my experience and from what my students too, we found is that when you can break up out of that noise and get above that, get above the clouds of all of the price shoppers and trying to race to the bottom,
Mhm.
you get real clients that really value you and appreciate it. And they say thank you and they give you
Mhm.
tips. I mean,
Mhm.
I was shocked when I went from 400 to 2000 when I made changes. They came and brought me a gift afterwards and said thank you. I'm like,
That's
is this
amazing.
how this can work? This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really thoughtful of them to go above
Yeah.
and beyond the payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's so cool. And I think that was I really feel like that was because I was scared to make the changes because
Mm.
I felt like there was so much more potential for rejection. I talked to
Mhm.
one of my students this morning about she was making a call and she was nervous about, you know, hearing the word no because it was a friend, right? And I'm like,
Mhm.
We get to still own in who we are and what we're doing and how much we want to charge, and it is what it is. And they have the opportunity to say yes or no, right? They
Mhm.
can say, great, this is awesome. Or they can be like, you know what, that's actually just not going to work for me. It's not my budget. No problem. But when we don't give them the opportunity, like we don't get to choose, right? And sometimes in our heads we do, like we're like, oh, but they won't be able to afford that. Maybe what I could do is offer a discount. Maybe what I can do is I'll give them more. Why we're making choices for them when that's not our business. Our business is to offer the services that we have, stand confidently in it. And those that we're meant to serve, we absolutely will. And the
Yeah.
cool thing is when you're generating 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, $4,000 a session, guess what? You don't need as many people to say yes to you either.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, do you really want to go out and hustle for every $200 session and have to get 100 of them, $200 of them, 500 to hit whatever goals you have? Or hey, how about 50 sessions throughout the whole year, have all kinds of breathing room and still hit the goals you want? And so it does. It boils down to knowing your numbers and knowing, like, first of all, what is your goal? Do you want to
Mhm.
make $20,000? Do you want to make $200,000 or $1,000,000? And then you just reverse engineer based on those goals. Okay, cool. So if I want to make $1,000,000, okay, how many $200 sessions am I going to need?
Mhm.
Well, we're going to need a whole lot of them, and we probably aren't going to have enough time for that, right? If your average is $10,000, you're right, $20,000. Great. Now what does that look like?
Mhm.
It adds some more practicality behind it and confidence in knowing what you're doing. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, knowing your worth, knowing your pricing, are two really, really important pieces and getting that confidence to stand behind what you're offering.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a lot of small business owners, photographers that they just don't know the numbers because it's scary, and like the whole back end accounting bookkeeping piece of it is just so time consuming and confusing. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, if they have not, if any of it, one listening has not read it, Profit First is the
Yes,
book that they must read. It
absolutely.
That is the first thing that every single one of my students does, and
Hmm.
we do not move forward until they've read it. So,
Yep.
profit first has to be done, and I think it's one of those things because not just for photographers, as you said, creatives in general tend to
Hmm.
avoid numbers, and honestly, there's a lot of people in the world that like to avoid the numbers, right? And
Yeah.
when we avoid them, it becomes scarier, right? And
Hmm.
we tend to shy away even more. Profit first is a great way to make it simple, and I will tell you, and so many of the people have chimed in, and the students, and actually one of my students that just wrote about it in our group, and so many people, game changer. It changed the way I entirely did my business. And it did for me too. when I started tracking the numbers, it cut my expenses very quickly because I'm like,
Mm,
oh, that was a I don't have a whole lot left to go in my pocket. It's at a
mhm,
very quick glance. You don't have any crazy accounting spreadsheets. You don't have to go in every, day and be tracking all kinds of stuff. It's a great snapshot. And so,
mhm,
yes, I would encourage every single person to read that. And if someone wants more help, like from a photography side, as far as like knowing how much they want to earn and how many sessions they need and stuff, they can reach out to me. I've got a spreadsheet that I have where it's putting all those numbers in. Like, great, all right, here's how
oh,
much
great.
I make. Oh, awesome. Instead of having to do all the math, it's a profit first reverse engineering sheet. And so it's like,
Great.
okay, here's your percentages of each thing. And if you want to make this much profit, all right, here's the numbers that you need to do. And so it's a really great tool to be able to kind of it's eye-opening, right? Because
Mhm,
sometimes, oh, well, we want to make $50,000, let's say. And we think that that's either we can have two mindsets. We can be like, oh my goodness, we'll never make that because we're not paying
mhm,
attention to numbers. Or as you plug it in, you're like, oh, well, $1,000 a session, that's doable. Okay, great. And it helps us build our confidence and bring us up to the desire of, yes, that is now my goal.
mhm,
Anyone that I work with, I always tell them, if you're not wanting to earn at least $1,000 or more, I'm not the person for you.
mm,
Everybody chooses to run their business differently, and that's okay. And if it's something that you want to do, just to make a little extra cash, that's fine.
mhm,
But that person is not going to enjoy what I'm gonna be teaching because I'm gonna push
mm,
them really uncomfortable to get them into a different price point because
right.
at $400, $500, it's just not profitable. It's more of a hobby than it is a business, and that's okay if that's what you want it to be. I just want
Mhm,
people to understand where they're at, and if you wanna make it a hobby, then absolutely go ahead and do that.
yep, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, and then as far as, like, I mean, as far as, the different things, so once you know your pricing, and you're really kinda doing, the internal work, knowing your worth and your value and really discovering a little bit more about yourself, there's 3 different pieces that I kinda and it correlates, but I kinda break them up because I think it's important to look at your options because I offer in-person sales. It
Okay.
doesn't mean that that's the only successful way to do it. It's what I
Mhm,
certainly would encourage, but you don't have to do that. Like the first step is I would encourage offer products. Right? So
mm,
step 1 is just offering products because if you are doing digital and that's the only thing that you offer, you are gonna hit a cap to where it just makes it really difficult to get above that, right? I mean,
mhm,
there are photographers that I know that are successful in doing $1,000 collections for digitals as a standalone offer, right? Hey, one fee, $1,000, you get everything.
mhm,
You get to a point where it gets very difficult to go above a certain amount, and that threshold can look different regardless of where you're at, your clientele, the genre that you're wanting to do. But when you can offer products, now you're opening up the opportunity for so many more things. So you can offer digitals. One thing that photographers can ask, do I want to offer digitals or do I not want to? I know photographers that they do not offer digitals at all. They
mm.
only offer products. Totally fine.
That's interesting.
And yeah, and this is something that I certainly, walk through with the students to be like, which one works for you? Like what feels good to you? I will always tell like here's what was working. And if there's something that I'm like, okay, they're not just afraid of this, but there's a reason, a logic, or whatever. Then I'm like, okay, well, let's try it your way. Let's do it. Because there's success can look differently, right? It can look
Mhm,
a whole bunch of different ways. So do you want to offer digitals or not? That's something to think about. I love offering digitals because as a mom myself, I want the digitals. I want to have them, but you price them properly, right? So you're not giving them away. You need to make sure that they're priced, properly. So then that way they're still wanting to purchase other products. So
mhm,
think about the products that you want to offer. I always recommend, keeping the product offering simple. Don't overwhelm with a whole lot of things. It makes it easier for them to make choices. When they make the easy choices, they feels like a win, and it's just more easy for them to say yes.
mhm,
So offering products in general is a great way to start using, professional labs. There's a whole lot of options out there. Start
mhm,
doing some searches, be in groups. I've got a free Facebook group. They can come in and we can talk about it there too. The other thing that I like to do is then now that I have all these products, and by all, there's a few wall art, there's albums, and then I have a few different things like gift prints and some other small things. I offer graduation cards and yard signs and stuff like that.
hmm,
So I have all these things, but now, right now, there's options. Oh, where are they even going to start? Right? Start with collections. Collections are a great way to make it easier there is, so much decision fatigue. We want people to come into the ordering process so like just simple, quick yeses, quick decisions. Oh, three options. Great. Yep. I love the middle one. Awesome. Let's keep moving. Right. Because if that cannot be a quick yes, the immediate response is no. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if I'm in any situation and I can't decide, I'll just think about it later. I'll come back. Right. So we don't want people to be in that. And most of my clients, when they do their ordering appointments, it's late in the day. It's after their day is done or, near the tail end. So we are making so many decisions during a day. And at some point, our mind is just like, done. No more
Mm-hmm.
decision making. Right.
Yeah.
So we get to be strategic as drivers. Do you want to have your ordering appointments early in the morning so they're still fresh and fired up? I find a lot of mine come in late in the afternoon. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to make that process as easy as possible for them. So we want those quick yeses. So the collections are priced to where it makes sense to choose a collection over a la carte. So there's already incentivizing them to choose a collection. And of the three collections, one of them is immediate, like, no, it doesn't even make sense financially, right? So I've already pushed them to the top two collections. And so I know that 85% of the people that are coming in will choose one of those top two collections, which means I know that I'm going to have the average revenue that I want to be able to support to hit the goals that I want. And so offering collections is a great way to be able to make the process simpler for them in everything. So now we've got an album. Okay, great. So this collection comes with an album. It comes with 40 images. We'll go ahead and pick those 40 favorite images. And then when offering album covers, I used to, oh, okay. So here's the 70 different options my lab offers. Which one do you like? Okay. Nobody needs 70 options.
Yeah.
And that is going to take them forever, right? So if you want to be efficient with your time, which means better revenue, per hour of your work as well, and make a greater experience for them, you get to be the expert. You don't give them 70 options. And so now what I do is I just say, awesome. So the two most popular color cover options are the navy and the oatmeal. Which one do you prefer?
Mm.
So now they get to just choose. I'm not asking if they want to see all the others, but if there's one of these are the two most popular. What that's doing is if someone really doesn't like these two colors, they heard most popular, which they would either hesitate and I'll pick up on that and ask like, do you like either of these or was there a certain color that you were interested in, and explore a little further. Or if they're hearing that like, yeah, what else do you have? Okay, cool. Let me go grab them for you. What kind of what kind were you looking for? You want light color or you don't want something, a little bit more bold? Give me some options and I can show you the different things. So in that, it's not limiting them to two, but I'm the expert. These are the most popular. People want they want to know what is popular. It gives them reassurance with their choices. If they want other options, then we've certainly got them, but we're making it as quick as possible for them to make those decisions. So, offering products is great. You can choose to do it online if you want. I certainly encourage in-person sales. The
Mm.
average per session when doing it in person is so much higher.
Mm.
I actually do a hybrid for me. I actually do online collections for my mini sessions for those short 15-minute sessions. And I do in-person sales for the longer sessions. And so my average for online sales is still great. My average is over $700 for a 15-minute session. My hour-long session is around 4,000 for in-person sales. The reason I choose to do that is just if I were to take that 700, multiply it times 4, right? If I had 4 sessions back to back, that would be an hour of my time photographing. That 700 times 4 is 2,800.
Mm.
Now, if I do a full session, it's around 4,000, right? But the numbers, I'm okay with those numbers. So if you're going to choose to do it online, you certainly can make sure that you're pricing accordingly.
Mhm.
So I've had success with both of them for longer in-person sales, and the averages are being 3, 4, 5. The largest sale I've had is almost $9,000. Being in person really is valuable because you're able to be one-on-one. They're able to touch the products. You're able to really see what excites them about that. You're able to be able to show them different options for what looks good on the wall, the different collections. Oh, we could do a pinwheel, collection of 4 different images. I know these are the 4 that you really loved. Look if we put them on here, right? You get to paint what it looks like for them in their life and what
Mm.
excites them. And so I find that works really well in person. But again, you get to choose which way do you want it. If you got a single mom and three kids that are just babies and they're like to get out of the house for 1 hour is difficult enough, then maybe at this stage for them, like what, we're just going to do some collections, and do it online. There's no judgment for me. I think you get to do whatever works. Um, I find that most often than not, the reasons for people not doing in-person sales, it's not about the logistics. In some instances, it certainly can be, right? It's not as much about the logistics, it is the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we get to do is we just get to work through the fear. So what are your concerns that you have? And as we go through it, we're realizing it's fear of rejection. It's the unworthiness of I can't believe I'd be charging this much. So uncovering all those things. And then it's cool because then you get to go in person, you get to see the reaction. A lot of photographers that are just doing online shoot and burn, here's your gallery, they miss out on that. And you can hear it. People are like, I've sent out 6 galleries and not a single person's even said anything. Do they hate the pictures? I hope they love them. I want to hear, they want that feedback of these were great pictures. I loved them. When you give them online on a gallery, it's more difficult to be able to receive that. When you're sitting there next to them on a couch and showing the pictures, when you get to see the mom with the tears in their eyes as you're watching their senior that's graduating and seeing them on stage and on this big screen, that's powerful. And I think that just reinforces that what I'm doing matters, and it increases the confidence to another level to go out to the next session and be like, yeah, this
Mm-hmm.
this is important stuff. It's easy to dismiss of, well, everybody's got a camera. I mean, these honestly, I last year I went to Italy with my boys and this is what I had. I had my phone. And that was a very strategic decision. I wanted to take my camera because I'm like, I just knew like the architecture, just the exploring, like I want those on the real camera, right? And I'm like, no, I'm leaving it at home. This camera is good enough. And I wanted to be in the moment and I want to just enjoy time with my boys. And I knew if I had my camera that I would become just the photographer and miss out on being with my kids. And so, yes, everybody's got a camera. Everybody can do it. But the thing is it took me a long time to understand the gifts that we have behind the camera. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the camera is the tool, but what they're paying you for is you. And that's where that whole knowing your worth is so important because if we don't understand the gifts that we have and making them feel comfortable, beautiful, worthy, and loved just by how we engage and interact with them, we're missing out on the whole thing. I had a
Mm-hmm.
senior mom tell me last year as we were doing the pictures, she's like, I just have to tell you, she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, you're sorry about what? She's like, I didn't understand what this was. She said, I knew we had to take pictures. It was her senior year and we were taking pictures. I feel like I was checking something off the list of the to-do list. She said, every single person needs to get in front of your camera. She's like, I didn't realize it is so much more than that. She's
Yeah.
like, look at her. She is having fun. Look at her confidence. Like, a girl that might have been, a little bit more quiet was like strutting, and working her. I'm like, okay, I'm like, I love this, and the laughter that comes and the crinkles of the nose. Like the girls particularly are not fans of them most times. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, but you have to have it. I'm like, because I said, I just met you. I said, but when I see that like real uninhibited, like not controlled laugh or smile or that real crinkle, I'm like, what I see, I'm like, I see like the little girl in you. I see the uninhibited joy. I'm like, and those are my favorite pictures. I'm like, you look beautiful. I'm like, I get it. You can think what you want about it. I'm like, but I love it. I'm like, and this is why I see just how much fun you have. I see the confidence in you. I see whatever, right? So in sharing those little moments, it seems like no big deal to me. But when those parents will say something like that, like, oh, that is the gift. That is why they're hiring you. And we get to just step into that and own it. Like, what is it? I would ask, anyone that's listening, what is it that makes you different? And if you're like me, it took a long time for me to understand because I didn't feel like I was special. I didn't feel like I had a gift. Right. And so it took a lot of exploring to be like, what is different about me? How do I show up differently? How do I make people feel comfortable? That I hear all the time, oh my goodness, I don't know how to pose. I'm gonna be your worst person in front of the camera. I'm like, dude, we are just having fun. I'm like, what's your favorite music? We crank on the music and I'm like, we're just gonna go and explore.
Mhm.
and I can help them feel comfortable where they almost forget the camera's there. And so that's the gift, right? What is it that you do? How do you help your clients feel confident, to feel loved, to feel beautiful? Someone else that I photographed last week in California, the wife came up and she said, "Oh," she said, "thank you so much." She said, "This was so much fun." She said, "I normally hate pictures." And her wife was like, "Yeah, she does not like this at all." I said, "I'm so glad you had fun." And she said, "You made this fun and you made me feel beautiful." And I'm like, I thought that was so cool. Not only did she feel it, but she had the confidence to say and just be vulnerable. Like, I've never felt beautiful. You made me feel that way. And I'm like, wow. Like,
That's
that's what we
amazing.
get to do as photographers. Like,
Yeah.
we get to change someone how they feel about themselves. That is not a $200 shoot and burn gift. That
Right.
is a much larger gift. And, at the very least, you need to be profitable. But beyond
Yeah.
that, there's just so much value in it. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that I, have changed in my business to help me get to a point where I know that I am not for every person, and that is
Mhm.
okay. My price point is going to have a lot more no's than it is yes, and that's okay. And I think if people are worried about the rejection, one thing that I did at one point was putting my average investment on my website.
Mm.
People are gonna be all over the board on, do you put put your
Right.
price your full pricing on? Do you put an average? Do you put a starting point? What do you do? And I put
Mhm.
on there, my typical average investment is $3,500. And I did that because I wanted to make sure people saw it. Now, of course, not everybody reads, right? So people are still going to contact you, but a lot
Mhm.
of people would find that, and then I wouldn't even get the inquiry. So it was kind of my
Mm.
way of like, maybe there's less rejection in it. And now I'm like, it doesn't phase me. But it was one of those things that kind of gave me a little, let me get out and get uncomfortable and maybe
Mhm.
do it in a way that doesn't quote unquote hurt, kind of get over that fear a little bit. So that was something I did at one point, when just starting out. But there's so much. I think at the end of the day, if you can just walk into it knowing, being confident in your numbers and knowing that you have a gift, and whoever you are meant to serve are going to be the ones that you serve. If
Mhm.
you hear 8 no's and 2 yeses, you know what? I just think, thank God for bringing me these 2 people that I'm meant to serve. Let me be a light to them. Let me spread some joy. However it is that I'm supposed to impact them, right? It
Right.
is okay to hear all of those no's. And especially if you're priced right, you get to hear a lot more no's and enjoy
Right.
time with your family and enjoy time vacationing or, baking or sewing, whatever it is you enjoy doing. You get to be at a peace of knowing I've got time to breathe. I've got time to enjoy life. And when those 2 that said yes, I get to serve, I get to do with such clarity and confidence and being able to overserve them, and
Mhm.
really make it a great experience for them. Everybody wins.
Mhm. Yeah. That's great. Um, all right. I don't even have any questions. That was just amazing stuff. I mean, you covered everything, and it's just really fun to hear all the stories too, and just your approach to it. And I like the part about how the no's are okay. Like you can do positive things with the no's in terms of looking at it a different way and using a different perspective. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And I think that's very, very powerful.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and I think that just correlates to what you're saying as far as like in your business, right? As far as like it might be a slower time for some people. If it
hmm
is, take it as a blessing. What can you do? Look at your to-do list. What have you been meaning to do to move the needle forward in your business? What other
yeah.
things can be done now that you have a little bit more time? Find the benefits and the blessings. I mean, there is lemonade in everything, and you hear people talk about that all the time. Someone's been through cancer, but they wouldn't wish to go back, and not because they've learned so much through it.
hmm
And my situation was the same thing. I'm like, man, it was a very hard time, and for a little bit it was pretty dark just in how I showed up and what I thought about myself and what I was capable of. And now I look at it, I'm like, man, the things that I learned, the challenges that I overcame, the strength that I got from it, it's
hmm
only serving to make me a stronger person, a better mom, a better friend, better photographer, and better whatever it is that else I'm doing beyond this. Coaching, what does that look like? Where am I going? I get to be
hmm
the best version of myself. And it's it's sweeter to know that I went through the crap, right? And so I'm like,
hmm
no, you know what? I think it is. I think just being grateful is something that has really helped me through all of it. I always think I'm like, what is it that gets me through? And it's kind of like the 4 Gs. I call them 4 Gs. God is my focus. When I have, focus on my faith, that things just could go a lot bit easier. Doesn't necessarily mean it goes the way I want, but I have peace with how things are go through. Gratitude, just being grateful for the things. If it's slow, okay, I can be negative about it, or where's the gratefulness in it? What's the good that can come from it? And then, giving, the more I give, whether it's of my time, whether it's of my finances, whether it's, talent, skills, however it is, what it looks like for you, the more I give, the more I get in return. Sometimes it's financial and it comes from a way I'd expect. Most of the time it comes financial from a way I didn't expect, or it's not even the financial stuff. It's literally just feeling better. And when I feel better, I show up better, which means I'm at a higher frequency, a higher energy, which means I'm going to attract the people that I really want, as opposed to the people that might not have been my ideal clients. And so all those things. And then grace. Grace is my fourth G. And it's always been easy for me to give grace to everybody else. And I've spent the last few years learning how to give grace to myself. And so when I can, just be focused on those 4 Gs, life gets sweeter.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Heather.
Yeah,
Really
you're welcome, Barb.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Let's see. I don't think, nope, we didn't have anything in the question realm. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. If somebody does have any questions about pricing for profit and anything that you talked about today, how can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can either go to sweetlemonadephotography.com. It's got information for my portrait stuff and also coaching. If they're on Facebook, we've got a Facebook group, 7-Figure Photogs, that are in there, and they're welcome to join the free group. And we've also got some content membership that we're doing as well. So all kinds of ways.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope you got some great takeaways from that. Go follow Heather and chit chat with her. And until next time, cheers.
Bye.